Welcome to Read the Book First. Today I have Delaney is here to join us.
Hello from Alaska.
Oh yes, today we're going to be discussing Wild from Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail by Cheryl Strayed. Just a little disclaimer, this is a memoir and we have not done any nonfiction on the podcast. Like this is a real person's life. So as we're talking about the book, we're not talking about her outside of the context of the book, in case anyone's worried. We're just going to talk about what this book is kind of, because it reads, in my opinion, it read like a fictional story almost at parts. So just, I wanted to say that before we dove in and anyone was like, oh no, she's a real person. We're like, yes, she's a real person. And we're going to talk about the book still. But when I asked you to be on the pod, we were like, okay, let's do like wildernessy, outdoorsy books, and we went through a bunch of them. We finally decided on Wild, and you had seen the movie before. Have you seen the movie?
I have seen the movie, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was trying to get that away from
It's hard.
I'm not following the theme of the podcast on this one.
It happens. I've seen the first third of this movie. My mom was watching it, and then I sat down and watched part of it and then left because I remember the beginning bits. I don't remember much of anything else. So a brief little summary. Wild is a memoir of Cheryl Strayed's adventurous hike through the Pacific Crest Trail. And also for context, Delaney is a very outdoorsy Alaska wild woman. So I'm excited for all your hot takes on her decisions throughout this.
Oh boy, yes. From a search and rescue standpoint, there was a lot of yikes, but also, you know, I have not done the PCT, so I can't really talk.
Have you done? I've never done any overnight hiking as far as packing more than what I need for a day. We would hike to a cabin or hike to a campsite where one of the adults had all the stuff, as a kid. So I've not ever done any through hiking.
I have done, well, last summer I did my first 2 backpacking trips. One was just overnight, and then we did the Traverse, the Deer de Silvas Traverse for my birthday. And that was my first, it was 2 nights, 3 days with a little dog. Would not recommend.
Talk about extra weight.
Yeah. A lot of extra weight.
She's there for moral support.
Yes, she had a lot of good times, and but yeah, so I've not done really an extended backpacking trip. It always seemed like it would be a little challenging and a little bit of a suffer fest, which it is. I think that is for backpacking.
I feel like that's part of the entices people to through hiking. I do know someone who did part of the PCT. I went to college with them, but they are totally off the grid so much that they don't even have a phone. I asked their old roommate who still has a phone. I was like, hey, do you have a number for this person? Because I was going to ask, be like, hey, can we get some inside tips? And they're like, they don't have a phone and they now live in Canada, but they call me once a month. And I'm like, well, I was going to record this podcast on Friday, so it's not going to happen between that, But
I know a couple people that have hiked the PCT and have finished the PCT, because there's a lot of people that have started it. I don't know there's a statistic on how many people actually finish the trail. I always hear from people that, it changed their life. It was hard. It's a lot of suffering, a lot of good views, a lot of cool people. That's So.
For those that don't know, the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail, is a trail that goes from the border of California and Mexico up to the border of Washington State to Canada along the mountain ranges. And I found out reading this book, it wasn't really a thing until the 80s. It was an unofficial trail. And I thought that was interesting. I thought it was way older, but
I did too.
But that's also because I currently live on the East Coast near the Appalachian Trail, and I always say that word wrong. Everyone corrects me here. Whatever.
Appalachian.
Appalachian. I'm like, I'm from Alaska. I don't know how to say anything. It's fine. That trail's way older, but that's because it had different routes of like part of the Underground Railroad, the like various indigenous people that, like there's this like it's just way older and more peopled, way more people. So I guess that makes sense in my head. I was like, the PCT must also be old. We can, I guess, dive in. It starts with the prologue, which was, I thought, really good. I think if you read the prologue and you like it, you should read the book. If you read the prologue and you don't like it, don't read the book.
That's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, she starts, and the prologue is essentially, it's her partway on her hike, and she describes this very dramatic event where she knocks one of her boots off the edge of a mountain cliff, and then she's just shit out of luck, just on the top of the mountain, and just the emotional heft of that event. And I really like her writing style. Immediately later in part one, I got a little bit bored, but then I picked back up later on, kind of like in a hike. You're really excited at first, and then suddenly you're like, oh, why did I do this? And then later on you're like, oh, I'm into this later, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I felt like reading the book. I was like, this is my hike as I'm sitting on my couch.
I mean, that is why I think these kind of books are popular. I mean, this one was particularly popular, so but I do, maybe I'm just in my nonfiction era, I don't know, but I have been reading a lot of, I would say, like the outdoor adventure memoir kind of category. This one is, I think if you're reading it just for the adventure, maybe that's not, the outdoor adventure part. There's a lot of other life things in this book that's maybe distracted from that. So I wouldn't say that's the right book if that's the goal. It's a good story. It is worth reading.
Yeah, I think it's worth the read. I think this is an adventure memoir written for English majors.
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Because I was like, this is going to be a symbol for something else she realizes later on. And I was right. And I was like, great.
Yes.
The book starts in part one, and she talks about what happens 4 years before she actually gets on the trail. When she was 22, her mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and within like 2 months, her mom ends up dying. Like, it's a very fast, tragic death through the horribleness of cancer. But Cheryl is really close with her mom, and she went to college with her mom. Even like, she's like, I went to college and my mom came with me, and I was like, if Patty had the access to do that, she would have. I don't know if my mom figured out how to listen to podcasts, but shout out, hi mom, if you figured it out.
I thought that was cute.
Yeah,
there is part of me that's like, I don't think I would want to have gone to college with my mom. It might have been kind of fun at times.
Yeah.
Because my mom would have been taking me out partying and stuff, and I'd be like, I have to study.
True.
But I thought that was sweet, though, that she had that opportunity, and I thought that was...
The relationship between her and her mom throughout this book is like one of the strongest parts of the book is. And I feel like there's parts where it's like an unhealthy relationship, and then later on she kind of faces that unhealthy, toxic part of it, but then works through that while she's hiking, because what else are you going to think about? So she goes into like detail of dealing with those 2 months of her mom getting sicker and sicker, and she goes back and forth, like flashbacking to her childhood. Her dad was abusive, and then her mom and her 2 siblings eventually left when she was her dad when she was 6. They were poor in general, but her mom always said that we are rich with love, so like they never felt poor. Her mom ended up remarrying a really nice guy, and they went and like essentially homesteaded out in Minnesota, right?
Yeah, the up north property.
Yeah. Which, as someone who lived in Alaska, there's one place I would not want to homestead, and that is the cold states like Alaska or Minnesota. But maybe that's because I've been in the South now for 5 years that I'm like, no, you can homestead where it's warm, you guys. But anyways.
But no spiders, no snakes here, at least in Alaska.
Yes. That is true. I do miss not having to worry about snakes and porcupines and
things that
yeah, there's a lot of poison stuff out there. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, and also Cheryl got married to her husband when she was like 19, really young, even though she was like raised to be like, and she's a very like in the like late 80s, early 90s feminist in that whole movement in college. So after her mom died, her husband and her moved to New York for a while. Then they struggled there, didn't work out. They moved back to Minneapolis. And then we find out that she begins to cheat on her husband. And then she ends up separating from him, getting divorced 3 years after her mom died, and then left for Portland. And so, like, at the beginning, we get like this really brief overview of what happened to make her eventually go on the PCT. And then throughout her being on the PCT, we get like glimpses of what actually happened in detail. So like I thought it was a good way of telling that story instead of being like chronologically throughout the whole time. Like cutting it up, I think, was a smart choice. It just helped with the flow.
It might have been too much at once.
Too much trauma at the beginning, and then too much, and then it was
maybe a little confusing.
Yeah.
It was a little confusing maybe at times because I was trying to remember like, okay, where are we at in this train wreck, basically? You know, it's like, oh yeah, okay, so she's married, she's not married. So I did have to go back sometimes and try to figure out where I was at. But yeah, I agree. Like, I think it was a good call to not dump all of that in one chapter. And then it's like you kind of tie it back to the memories. I think it was a good choice for sure. I will say chapter 1, I think, was the first time I sobbed. So just starting off.
Yeah. Cry tracker. Ding.
Yes.
We cried here.
Okay.
Yeah,
cried here.
The whole passage of her dealing with her mom at the very last days. Sobbed.
I think her mom saying goodbye to the animals. Sobbing.
Sobbed.
Yeah.
Sobbed. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. But rightly so, Cheryl, like during those 3 years between her mom's death and her divorce with her husband, like is going through it. She keeps traveling places like for a year, like before they're even divorced. She spends like a year in Portland where she meets this guy named Joe and starts doing heroin.
I know.
Like there's a first step before heroin. Either it's alcohol or it's like a drug that's not as dangerous, right? But she doesn't talk about smoking weed. She doesn't talk about any other drugs. She just goes, oh yeah, we started doing heroin every day.
It's giving Room Springer vibes.
Yes.
Straight to meth, straight to heroin. What?
Yep. Absolutely. Which is like, I mean, she's obviously going through a huge trauma on top of all the other traumas she eventually like faces when she's, going through it all and like reflecting. But like, it's just like shocking. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is a real person who really did this and was going through this awful thing. I empathize, but I'm also like, what? Like
there's several sections that I'm like, what is how? What there's I think it was maybe chapter 2 that she just describes this. I don't know what the word would be, a bender of sorts. She's just like hooking up with all these guys, which I did write as a note. How are you meeting all of these guys? Like, what this is, and maybe
isn't she a waitress?
I guess she's a wait. I just, maybe from an introverted standpoint, that just is so much social interaction happening, and I just was amazed by that.
Fair. No, that I agree. It is. I think a bender is a really good term for that. Like year and a half of her doing that, but eventually her husband comes to Portland, is like, hey, come back to Minneapolis. We gotta get your shit together, essentially. And so she goes back with him. They try to work it out, but end up getting divorced. She doesn't do heroin when she's not with Joe, the Portland guy. We do find out that when they get divorced, her and her husband both get a blue horse tattoo on their shoulder to represent her mom's horse and kind of a memory of her mom. And then we find out a little bit later, but she ends up finding a trail guide to the Pacific Crest Trail. And within a week is like, reads a little bit and is like, okay, I'm doing this next summer. And it's like December. And then she's going to, okay, next summer I'm doing this. Like rash decision. Like it makes, this decision is so rash And like it's me who like when I go on a weekend trip, I'm like, this is where I'm gonna stay, this is what I'm gonna eat, this is where I'm gonna like, that's how I am when I go to a town 3 hours away and I have a
Yes.
cell phone.
But I will say, just deciding to go hike over 1,000 miles with very little to no training, it is a crazy decision. It is reckless, but it's not as reckless as the heroin and all the other stuff, probably. So it's an improvement.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes. It makes sense within the context of someone who randomly begins to do heroin every day for weeks.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I will say that I think grief can make you be a little unhinged.
Absolutely.
The word that I found is that grief makes you feel very untethered.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this kind of, you're just trying to figure out, what am I doing? And for that, I mean, she had a lot going on, and to lose her mom, her best friend.
Yes.
You can't really blame her.
I know. Yeah. I don't blame her for the honest, like, it's just, yeah, I don't blame her at all. Like, grief is so hard to work through, but like, and it does make sense if someone went from heroin to the PCT. It's like it's a weird trajectory that does make sense, but also it's just wild. But yeah,
there it is.
Yeah,
but I would say that maybe she did not handle the whole situation the best way. There may have been other ways to cope that were a little less reckless and dangerous and completely life-altering.
And this was in like 1991, I believe, when her mom died. So this is like 91 to she starts the trail on 95 in summer 95. So like, not that the 90s were like oh, the Wild West. I mean, I was a babe at this point, but a wee little babe. But therapy still existed in the 90s. It wasn't as, not that we talk about mental health and grief as much as we should in our society. That's a whole other conversation, but it was a thing. And like, she essentially had a college degree, so she would have, and in the liberal arts too, so she would have known people who went to be therapists. You know what I mean? Like, she would have been aware of it. But
I think she did go to therapy.
She did at some point, but
maybe could have gone sooner.
yeah. But then it flashes forward to the night before she starts the PCT, and she's at this motel, and she's packing up her backpack and fitting everything in it. And on page 41, for anyone who has a book, a list of the inventory she takes. And this is when I was reading it, I was like, I've never done major backpacking. I'm an outdoorsy person because I was raised in Alaska. Not much as much as to do through hiking. But like, I'm reading this list and I'm like, I know this is not what you need.
It is a lot.
It is so much.
I think I listened to this section because I did both the audiobook and I read. I was kind of switching on and off. And I think I was listening to this section and I just kept thinking, this is too much. What are you doing?
Too much.
4 books. 4 books.
Like, in my head, I read that 4 books and I was like, bring a Kindle. Then I'm like, dummy, she's not going to have electricity. And also, it's 95. There's no Kindles. Duh.
No Kindle.
But I also know, bring 1 book.
And also the new boots. I screamed,
yes.
No!
No new boots.
No new boots.
No new boots. Yeah.
Oh, my feet hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. She starts her hike, not at the end of the trail. She starts in the Mojave Desert in California, and she struggles to get her backpack on. What is that phrase she always says? She's like,
hunching in a remotely upright position.
Yes, hunching, which I'm like, I've carried a backpack once. I know what that is like.
Yes.
She hitchhikes to the trailhead and puts her name in the registry. So for those who don't hike much, a lot of major trails have registries for safety reasons, so people know, like, check in, like, you started here but you didn't get to the next checkpoint, or you didn't check out. So she puts her name in and she notices that it's mostly men who have checked in on the trail. She starts hiking and her first 2 days are just miserable. And as she's like going through this misery, she tells a flashback from right before she was headed to move to Portland to prepare for this hike, or to live with her friend Lisa to prepare for this hike. Joe had visited her in Minnesota, and she had done heroin with him 2 days before the hike, and like still has a bruise from like where the needle was. Like
backpacking is hard enough.
Backpacking is so hard. Like if dudes who run, like people who run marathons, carbo load, heroin is not carbo loading for hiking.
This is not how to prepare for this hike.
No. So you're already, I'm just like reading this. I was like so worried for her. Like I know she makes it. This is a nice thing about it being a memoir is like she's alive at the end because she wrote the story.
She's writing this.
Yes.
She's writing it.
But I'm like, but how is she going to get there? So I was still like worried for her. And she's hiking and just like so much struggle her first 2 days. And she like hurts her ankle at first because her boots are new, of course. And then she comes face to face with a moose, right? Wasn't it a moose? I called it a bull, and I assumed it was a moose, but maybe it was a cow.
No, I think it's a moose. That's what I have written down. Is it? I think she thought it was a moose, but where she's at, it's not a moose.
There's not moose country, right?
Yeah, it's not a moose.
It's not wet enough for moose.
I think it was a cow, but she thought it was a moose because that was like what was in her mind.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's because this is like the desert.
It's too far. Yeah, it's too far south.
Yeah.
For that, so it must be a cow, because that's what I thought too. Because I was listening to this, and then she said bull, and I was like, okay, I'm thinking cow because I know she's in Southern California. But then when I was taking some more notes to make sure I had everything right on the summary page online, it said moose.
I think she thought it was a moose. I think that's the whole thing.
I'm gonna Google it right now.
Like I thought it was a cow, but I wrote that she encountered a quote unquote moose, but I thought she saw a cow or a bull.
Control F moose. Okay, it's not a moose, but she yells at moose. It's a Texas Longhorn. That makes more sense.
Yes,
she says.
I thought it was it was a longhorn. Yes.
Yeah. She says moose. I hollered, though I knew it wasn't a moose. In my panic, I couldn't my mind wrap around what I was seeing, and a moose was the closest thing to it. And then she keeps yelling moose. That makes more sense. Okay, well, Moose Gate has been solved.
I should have maybe elaborated on my notes there besides just quote unquote moose.
I also have moose, and just that's it. Moose.
It's like there's a moose in the desert. That doesn't add up.
Mirages, dehydration, heroin from 2 days ago.
But that is fair. I mean, if you're just going along, and especially if you're not expecting to see an animal like that, that would be very startling. And
okay, so when I'm home in Alaska and I'm hiking alone or with my dogs, because I don't go without another being, I have to play music because I'm terrified of running into creatures.
I mean, obviously,
it's going to be a bear for us.
Maybe a wolf, but probably a bear.
You cannot say I'm going to run into a wolf, because now I'm going to be terrified every single time I'm on the trail. It's going to be a bear, and I can deal with the bear. Anyways, I play music, and then I was sitting here, and I think there's many reasons why I could not do the PCT, nor do I want to do the PCT. But I was thinking, as I was reading this, I was like, here are the reasons in my head. Here's the reasons why I cannot do the PCT. Number one, I am chicken shit of the dark. When I have to take out my dog to go to the restroom at dark, I have almost a panic attack. I live in the country, and it's very dark out here. No street lights, no city lights, very dark. Two, I am terrified of meeting creatures on the trail. I'd have to play music, and I probably wouldn't have access or having music playing constantly. So that those would be solved if I had a companion, but I could not do it alone. There's way more reasons why I could not do the PCT, but those are the top two in my head.
So you're saying that we should do the PCT?
How about a day trip? We could do it we can do two. Okay, honestly, we could do a 2-night, 3-day part.
Okay. A little mini PCT.
A mini PCT, yes. Maybe we could do the AT lower mountains.
The thing is, I always hear on the AT how bad the ticks are, and
the ticks are bad in my backyard here.
Yeah, that's why I live in Alaska. I know we're starting to get them, but I don't know. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, they do suck. So then she goes on to describe like the next like bunch of days are kind of all the same. She's by herself, hasn't seen anyone. She's averaging 9 miles a day, which is less mileage than she thought she was going to get. So she's worried about her boxes. As she's hiking at night, she has a little stove that she cooks her food on. Her stove breaks, so she has to go.
Well,
Or the
she
wrong
got
gas,
the wrong
right?
fuel.
Wrong
Yeah.
fuel, yeah.
So she got the wrong, which when I read that, I was just immediate, no. That's that has to be such a just a disheartening feeling because you're looking forward to a little hot meal, you're gonna have a good night, and then she has to eat cold food, and that I was sad for her on that one.
Yeah. And so she gets off the trail and finds like a like service road essentially and follows it down, sees three men in a truck, and they're really concerned, and she's like confused, like why is it we're like near trails? And apparently they were gonna blow up the mountain that she was on for some mining or some who knows what. One of them takes her home and his wife feeds her. They let her sleep there and bathe. And then she drives her to the next little town to get her stove fixed. When she's getting her stove fixed, she hears about a lot of snow, like more snow than normal, on the Sierra Nevada part of the trail, and which really worries her because she doesn't get her pickaxe until later on in the trail. But then she keeps on hiking and she's very disheartened. Like, she's like, I need to quit. I can't do this. I'm not prepared for this.
She's gonna quit and go to Alaska.
Yeah, she's gonna quit and go on a bus to Anchorage. Girlie, don't go to Anchorage.
Okay. Like, really, of all the places.
Yeah, don't go to Anchorage. She finds this cute little spring and she's able to get water and figured how to do that. And then she takes like a naked bath in the water. But I really like the scene is like her on the edge of deciding, should I quit or should I keep going? And she has this like really peaceful, serene moment of like, hey, look, I can do this. I'm getting water. I'm finding resources. I'm taking care of myself. And then right as she's packing up, like puts clothes back on, a hiker comes up and she's like, well, good thing you were here when I was naked in the water. But she meets Greg, and Greg is this hiker who is like, he is the nerd hiker. He is so prepared. He has looked at the philosophy of how to pack your backpack, and he like breathes life into her and being like, we can do this is awesome. I'm an accountant, I'm from Tacoma, we can do this. Like, he's just like so excited. And so she decides not to quit because of like this meeting of Greg. Greg is one of my favorite of the people she meets on the trail.
When he's very encouraging, and which is nice because like, I mean, I'm sure that scene, this woman with a gigantic pack that is just like not prepared,
what she calls monster,
appropriately so.
Yes.
And I'm sure that you could look at that and be like, oh my gosh, like someone that doesn't know what they're doing. But just the fact that he's encouraging, and yeah, I think that is very nice. He's a good guy.
Yeah. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna keep on hiking at least to my to Kennedy Meadows, which is the first stop that has the boxes that her friend is sending to each stop with resupplies of food and money and stuff. When she's going towards Kennedy Meadows, she encounters a bear, and the bear runs away from her when she's talking to it, but it looks brown. And so she's like freaked out if it's going to be a brown bear, but later on talks to other hikers like there's no brown bears in this area, so it'd be a black bear. And one of them like jokes like, oh, their hair gets lighter in the California sun, which like I don't know how true that is. I'm not a mammalogist. If it ran away from her, it's probably a black bear. So like pro tip from your little wilderness Alaskans, black bear, scaredy pants. Talk to it and it will usually leave you alone.
Unless it has cubs.
Yeah. If any bear has cubs, you're SOL.
Yeah. I always tell people like I'm not as scared of black. I mean, I respect that black bear, but
they need their space.
No problem. I'm giving space, whatever. But I always say that black bears, I'm way more comfortable with that. Brown bears, no. They would just maul you because you pissed them off, They seem to be a little more aggressive.
Yeah. And like I've never seen a brown bear in the wild, thankfully. let's keep it that way. But like growing up, everyone's like, yeah, just play dead. And I'm like, I mean, I can't outrun one.
Oh, I thought if they're black, fight back. If there's like a saying, right?
It's like if they're brown, lay on the ground or something like that.
Yeah, if they're brown, lay down, and if it's a polar bear, you're dead. Or
if it's a polar bear, why are you out there?
Yeah. If it's a polar bear, why are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how that goes, right?
Sure. So she sees the bear, keeps on hiking, and gets to Kennedy Meadows, and it's her first stop. She meets a few hikers here. She meets Albert and Matt, who are father-son, like Eagle Scout types who, again, know what they're doing. So here's Cheryl, who is grieving this huge loss in her life, who is struggling of not doing heroin, who just got divorced, who like is literally lost in every way possible. And the only people she keeps meeting are men who are prepared. And if there's anything that's worse than some, like, I can't think of something worse at that time, right? Like, the thing she wants is someone who's also struggling and miserable, not someone who's like, not purposely, like, they're very nice people, luckily, but like, who's like, you just know they know what they're doing. It's like, okay, and like imposter syndrome immediately, you know?
But it's probably good that she is meeting these people because they are helping her.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so she gets her box. It has the axe. It has a letter from Joe who says, I'm going to go to rehab, but Joe's a walking red flag, so do we believe it? No. There's a free for PCT hikers box, and she gets a ski pole to help her with hiking, which she desperately needed. Then she meets, I forget what the phrase was. Trail angel, was that what they called it?
Trail angel, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone that helps out. That usually it's often like other previous hikers or people that just kind of like the community, and they do things to help you along the way, basically.
Yeah, they camp out and let you stay there and like give you food and stuff. So she meets the trail angel Ed, and Albert and Math stay with her and Ed at the campsite. They also meet Tom and Doug eventually there. Greg is also there. So like there's this big, huge community now that she's made it to her first stop, which is a huge accomplishment to make it there. And she finally is like fully in this through hiker like lifestyle now that she's like learning the lingo, figuring all this out. Greg teaches her how to use the pickaxe on ice, and Albert helps her.
Yeah, Albert helps her downsize the pack.
Yes, which is so needed. And Albert, like, he reads very like Seventh-day Adventist to me. Like, because Seventh-day Adventists love Eagle Scouts and they also love hiking, but not in this, especially on the Sabbath.
Which makes the part when it's like the giant roll of condoms.
Yeah,
that killed me.
Yeah, so Cheryl in her pack with all her 4 books and all of her stuff she didn't need. She also brought a huge roll of condoms for this solo hiking trip.
I mean, we're all for safe sex. That
yes.
is great. I don't know that as far as weight in a pack was the best call. But
yeah, definitely. He like helps her organize the pack, and the next day when she's packing up the newly decided equipment, she realizes that all the condoms are gone, and she was going to keep them, but they're all gone. So she's like, Albert took them. It's like the theory.
Well, I thought she like slipped one though, didn't she?
Yeah, she slipped one in her pocket. Yeah, just one. Tom and Doug go ahead because Cheryl, whenever she's with people, she's like, hey, we can hike for a little bit, but like I want to hike alone. Like she has this whole thing where she needs to do this alone. It's part of her like philosophy behind hiking. Sure. Yeah. The eat, pray, love of it all, right?
It is very eat, pray, love, yes.
Yes. But like this one is a more relatable eat, pray, love. But
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, not the heroin.
Not the heroin. As they're getting ready to leave, there's a lot of talk about a lot of snow issues and a lot of people rerouting. So she decides with Greg to reroute and go towards Sierra City. There's a map of the PCT and then the map of the reroutes that she did included in the book, but that helps for geography reasons. And so because she's going to be essentially skipping most of, not most, but a chunk of the hike that she was planning on doing, she decides that she instead is going to hike through Oregon and get to Washington State, which she originally wasn't going to do. And so she hitchhikes with Greg to a town where she calls her friend Lisa, replans the boxes, and then they take a Greyhound to Reno and then another bus to another town. And then they finally hitchhike and they finally get to Sierra City. And as she's traveling, she's like, I have no money. I've used all my money. And she's like panicking because she has like $1 and some cents, like very low. And she's 96 miles of hiking from her next box.
She meets the gal in the bathroom. They recognize the feather as a corvid. And she's like, oh yeah, I do this ornithologist, studying corvids. And I was like, is this Jenessa?
The corvidology? No.
I was like, oh.
I respect ravens. I don't like corvids. They creep me out.
They are very smart.
Do you remember that raven that would meow?
Yes.
At the cannery?
And there's the meowing raven. Mm-hmm. There's the one that imitates the rooster.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Delaney and I worked at as tour guides at this old cannery, and there was a bunch of ravens that I tried to befriend just so that they wouldn't haunt my dreams.
I always just found it funny. It's like, oh, they're so great. And you're like, they're too smart for their own good. It's creepy.
They're too smart for their own good. I mean, it's cool and abstract. It's cool and abstract, but they can do damage. I don't know.
Well, they remember you, so
I know.
You have to act right.
Always smile at corvids. But yes. Birders, they surround me. Cheryl is starting to lose toenails at this point because her boots are too small.
Yes, all the toenail discussion. I know it is a reality of backpacking, especially through hikers. It's gonna happen. I think just reading the description
of her feet in general,
I don't know why that.
There's so much discussion about her feet throughout this, and it makes sense because she's hiking, and that's like where a lot of her thoughts are all day, is that her feet hurt, my feet hurt, you know what I mean? Like, I understand that, but it's gross that every time she's like at a stopping spot, she's like, and I rested my feet because they were blistered and scraped and toenails, and I'm like, what? Add it to my list of why I will not hike the PCT.
I think I can handle the blisters, the sore feet. I mean, for sure, the small shoes. That.
But we also have hiking shoes that fit, and that are worn in.
That are. We did not break them in by starting a through hike. The toenail discussion, it brings me pain. Like that one, I had to just kind of cringe through.
Yes. This is where we get a flashback about her like brief stint of therapy where she found a free therapy thing that of like training therapists, where she kind of begins to work through her issues with her dad. Her dad like yelled and hit her mom and was very like controlling of her and her siblings. But she just like barely begins to work through that stuff. But then she keeps on hiking, and this is where she hits the first bit of the actual snow. She's able to go through a little bit of the snow and ice using the pickaxe. Thankfully Greg taught her how to use it, because she would have been dead off the side of a mountain. Because pro tip, y'all, there's snow on mountains.
There's snow on mountains, and sometimes you need an ice axe to not die.
Yeah, or grip-ons, like something.
Yeah, which was probably the hardest part, with my little mini through hike this past summer. I knew there would be snow. I was not ready for the sheer amount of snow. So I commiserated with this part of just like the stress of that. And had I not been with someone that knew exactly what we were doing, I would have been stressed too.
Absolutely. she gets to that patch of snow, and then she decides that she needs to bypass more. And like each time she bypasses, it's understandably like a huge deal to her because she had like envisioned this huge like life-changing trip, but if she's skipping chunks of it, then she's not having that chance to have a life-changing trip, right? But she hitchhikes, and luckily this family picks her up, takes her to their cabin that they're staying, and like gives her food. They trade books, and she gets a specific book called The Novel by James Michener, I think is how you say it, which was one of her mom's favorite authors, but one of her mom's favorite books. And then she has this whole flashback about how her snooty English professor told her that that wasn't a book, and that author wasn't a book, and that it's not worth her time. And then she reads it on the trail again. It's like, I mean, parts of this is like pulpy, but it's like a good book, and it connects her to her mom more. I mean, not most, a lot of English professors are snooty.
The flashbacks of her being mean to her mom that makes me so sad.
Yeah.
I think that's just like she's being such a pretentious asshole, you know.
I mean, like, she's 20, right? Like
we've all been there where we're young and we think that we know something, and especially go to college and you're learning all of this, and like I get that. It did make me a little sad for her mom, and I guess I'm glad she recognizes how mean she was.
Yeah. The family drops her off 2 miles from the trail. And so she decides that she's gonna sneak onto this campground and camp without paying because she only has like 96 cents or something like that. She gets woken up in the middle of the night by the people who are running the campground, this old folks. And if you I immediately pictured the all those folks in charge of the campground at Ward Lake who are always so on top of their game, and like they know exactly what's happening. Like like I've met these people, this couple that's waking them up with the truck lights and kicking her out because she's like 50 cents short. And so she's packing up and getting ready to hike into the wilderness a little bit to camp. And then we reach chapter 10. Chapter 10 is the most, this is like, I've like, obviously I sobbed at the beginning when her mom dies. I like tear up a bit, you know, throughout, but this sobbed so much so that I was like, I need to send Delaney a picture of me sobbing right now. Like I was sobbing so much I was like that kind of sobbing. Like
yeah, in my notes I said, and I am once again sobbing. Like that's all I had.
So her mom had a beloved horse that they had for all of her childhood, or all of Cheryl's childhood, named Star. And she describes all these happy moments her mom had with this horse, and then it fast forward to like months after her mom had died. Her stepdad wasn't taking care of the horses as he should, in my opinion. I mean, yes, the horse is like 31. The horse is old, but the horse was not getting enough nourishment and was like just slowly dying. And so the vet was like, yeah, either you need to put it down or you need to, or her grandpa, sorry, not the vet. Her grandpa says, who was like an old cowboy of some sort, you need to put it down with a vet, or you need to shoot it in its head. And her and her brother and her stepdad don't have enough money at the time to put it down. And so her and her brother and her husband go and like end up shooting it in the head. And it's like, it doesn't, like, it's disastrous, and the description is awful. And it is, though, like, it is heartbreaking. Like, you cannot, it's gruesome. It's awful.
It's, yeah, that whole chapter is really hard.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel so bad for the horse's Lady, right? That's Lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel so bad for Lady, but then also just to be on the other side of that, you know, they're trying to do the right thing so she's not suffering. But it's just like that. Oh my gosh, yeah. I saw.
It's awful. So if you want to cry, read chapter 10 of Wild. You will, without any context. I guarantee it. But anyways, it gets back to her being on the trail. She's hiking. She gets to 3 lakes. She meets these 3 bros fishing, is how I wrote it down in my notes. They're like all these like 3 adult best friends fishing. And one of them and her have like really deep conversations, and he gives her a Bob Marley t-shirt, which becomes like a symbol of like, essentially a symbol of hope and like energy as she's going through the hike. She does end up losing or misplacing this shirt later on. But if you go online and you look up like wild pictures, wild Cheryl Strayed pictures, and then an Oprah article will come up because this was a famously Oprah book club book. There's a bunch of pictures she took on the trail, and you can see the Bob Marley shirt, but there's also pictures from her childhood and her mom, including a picture of the horse, which looking at that picture made me cry.
Yeah.
So just be warned. But it is cool to see the pictures she took on the trail and pictures of both her view and like what she looked like. It was pretty cool. So she gets the Bob Marley shirt. She hikes to her next stop that has a box and finally meets women on the trail. She meets Trina and Stacy. And like the moment she describes meeting the women, it's like, like when I've had this moment, when I go into a game store and there's a bunch of people playing Warhammer, and there's one girl in the back standing next to her boyfriend, and I lock eyes with her and I'm like, I understand you. We're best friends right now. And we're not going to talk because we're across this room full of nerdy dudes playing Warhammer, but I understand you.
It's a sisterhood.
It's like, yes, you're like, I understand. We are surrounded by men and it's awful.
It is like a nice feeling, when it's you're somewhere or doing something that's very male dominated, and then you see a woman come in. It's like it does make you feel better.
It's like, no words, I got you. And they camp together. This guy named Brent joins them, and the four of them like start planning how they're going to deal with the snow that's coming up. They decide to hitchhike to like another area, another trail intersection. They have to split up because there's only 2 seats, so the 2 other girls go together, and so she's by herself. And this is where she meets Jimmy Carter, a journalist who is researching, quote, hobo life. And she has this whole conversation about how she's not a hobo and how she's hiking and it's different, and he just doesn't understand, and ends up giving her like a little gift with a sandwich and a beer, and she's like, all right, I'll take a free beer, like whatever. It was interesting. I was like, are you going to have a more in-depth conversation about how we view people who are homeless? And then she didn't. I was like, all right, not this book. We got it.
Not this book. Yeah, the Hobo Times, which just the name of that there. I'm just like,
yeah.
Okay.
That and his name being Jimmy Carter, I'm like, is this guy real?
It sounds fake, which
probably means creepy and fake. Yeah.
That was definitely, I mean, I do think that is an interesting thing. It's like, yes, I look like I'm homeless, and
and she had sold all of her possessions. Like,
but homeless by choice, so it's different. It's like, well,
it's quirky, and I'm like, is it? Like, yeah. And she doesn't go into it, which is like, I understand that's not the point of this book, but I think it is. I don't know what else she's done with her life or what else she's written about, so I do not know if she's, talked about that. But from my friends who are very outdoorsy and through hikers and literally off the grid, I do know that they have very like different opinions between each person. Everyone's, different opinions about homeless folks that are homeless and like through hikers and van life, like there's a lot of conversations that can be had there, but it's not this book.
Not in this book.
Not this book.
Just meet Jimmy Carter and moving on.
Yep. Yeah. And she keeps hitchhiking. She gets picked up by this lady who's driving with these 2 guys, and they have like a really like deep, little Lady Lou is her name, and her have a really deep conversation. We find out that Lou's son got killed in a car accident 5 years earlier, so they have like this big like, oh, we both have these huge losses in our life moment that I thought she described really nicely.
And we also meet Spider Monkey.
Oh, yeah.
That story. It's like, what?
This is why I'm like, this is why I do not want to hitchhike. Because of this.
But also that whole story of that group of people, of the bikers, it's exactly what you would expect, I feel like, in hitchhiking. Like, that is exactly what I would expect.
Yes. Yeah. True. She reunites with Stacy and Trina at the next little area they're meeting up at, and they hear that the next stretch of land in her trail guide. So we haven't really talked about this. She has this trail guide, which she did not read fully before going on the trail. Mistake number one.
Yeah, maybe a little research could have been warranted.
Yeah,
is what it.
Yeah, she's reading it as she's going, right? So in the time that the book was printed, the people who were writing it was like they are planning on installing a water tank. At this point, it is not currently there as the time we're publishing this, so check ahead. And they find out that there is a water tank, and from the like notes in the trailhead check-ins, people are like, there is water at this water tank. And so Stacy and Tina or Trina go and take off without her a day ahead. Cheryl's resting her feet because again, her boots are too small.
Yeah.
She goes off the next day. She gets to the tank and there's papers been taped to it by other hikers, and it says there's no water. It's empty. No water. And she's like rationed her water out to last that 15 miles, but not any further. And so luckily there's a reservoir, a dirty reservoir of like gross water. And people, water safety. Because, oh yeah, we forgot to mention 2 of her friends she met earlier got possibly jaundice from drinking dirty water. The boys, the Eagle Scouts.
Oh, yeah, they got Giardia.
Giardia, yeah, not jaundice.
Yeah. Same thing, whatever.
Starts with a J. It's a disease, illness, whatever.
I think it's actually a G, but whatever.
Oh no.
I don't know. It's fine. But yes, they got sick earlier and had to leave.
Yeah.
Also, I think we forgot Greg. We now have already found out that he left the trail.
Oh yeah, Greg left the trail,
which is like a big.
Yeah.
He made it and he didn't kind of a thing, which is big.
Yeah. So between Greg leaving the trail and meeting the ladies who are also struggling in similar ways. And Cheryl, obviously, like when you're hiking every day, your muscles are eventually going to grow and get used to it. So like at this point, Cheryl is like, even though this is a disaster of the water, Cheryl is like, okay, I can do this. Like I am a hiker. Like I've come into my own here. She gets to the reservoir and it's gross, muddy water. She uses her water.
Yeah, she has like a little
purifier. Pump. Yeah, pump.
And then she adds the iodine tablets.
Yeah, which good
call. Because,
yeah. So she's able to get water and not die. And then she falls asleep and she wakes up with frogs all over her. No. Like she's like, and I dreamt that I had little arms and like people's arms and all over me, and then it was real, and I was like, what's gonna be on her? I was like, raccoons was what I thought. I was like, raccoons have hands.
Raccoons. Little raccoon
hands. It's like little massage from the raccoons.
No, it is frogs. It is frogs all over her.
Like frogs don't creep me out in general, but if I woke up with frogs all over me, I'd be peeing my pants. I don't know. I'd be freaking out.
As a side note, I once had a frog fall into my bra in Mexico, and I did not know. I thought it was a drop of water because it just felt like a little cool just for a second. And it was like a strapless dress and bra. I did not find out until a bit later when I went to take that dress off and it jumped out of my bra, and then I started screaming. And so when I read that one, oh my gosh, no. That's couldn't do that. That is why you have the tent.
This one time when we were in Guatemala and Tikal, the ruins, a lot of tourists were in there taking pictures. They're like, oh, what's in there? So my stepmom and I went in there to look, and in the back corner there was a little bat hanging up, and people were taking pictures and stuff. And then they all left, and then so Jody and I went in there, and we weren't taking pictures of it. We're just looking at it. But it wakes up and it goes, and like I turn and it to run away, and it hits the back of my it just ran into me and then flew away. So I was like, I was attacked by a bat.
Like, am I a vampire now? I don't know. Maybe
Edward. Just kidding. Anyways.
Anyhow, back to the story.
Yeah, waking up with frogs. No, thank you. No, thank you. But she ends up keep hiking on this trail. She has the water, and she makes it to the next little stop. where she meets a hiker named Rex, who, as she's like taking off her boots and like complaining about it, he's like, well, where did you get your shoes? And she says, REI. And he's like, well, call them. They do satisfaction guaranteed. They'll send you new boots. And she's like, oh, and like, amazing. But
there are several REI ads in this book.
That's what I feel like, right? Every time she talks about REI, she's like, I went there to get this thing for my car and I just fell in love with the outdoor store, which like I get. I love going into an REI. It's
Sure.
fun. It's like Disneyland, but I can't afford any of it. It's fun. Same with Disneyland. But anyways.
Well, it is exactly like Disneyland.
Exactly. She goes, and every time she talks about every time she talks about REI, it's like the like most 5-star review.
Yes.
Like even with the having the wrong fuel, she's like, I'm sure the worker there tried their best.
Yes.
Like, damn.
It's like, okay, well, but yes, there are multiple REI ads in this book.
I do hope she got that money.
Yes.
You know?
I hope that there was some kind of sponsorship in here, because there's a lot of 5-star reviews.
So she calls them, gets it scheduled to come to our next stop, and is like so excited. Only has a little bit further to go in these disastrous boots. The next day of hiking is when the boot off the edge of the mountain happens, and she decides to make shoes out of duct tape.
I know.
The camp sandals she have sounds like cheapo like Walmart flip-flops. And she's like, she describes everyone else having like sturdy sandals. And I'm like, yes, they're wearing Chacos or Tivas as the hiking sandal, you know. And I'm like, yes, they were prepared. That's what happens.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really describe exactly what kind of sandals, but I was picturing that, okay, it must not be an outdoor sandal because you can hike in those to a fair amount. You know?
Yeah. I've hiked a few miles in my Chacos. They're good.
Sure.
Yeah, but I figured she just had like flip-flops for camp, you know. Then we have another flashback to her feeling abandoned by her stepdad. So her stepdad, Eddie, who came into her life when she was pretty young and was like an all-around really good father figure, like within a year of her mom dying, had remarried and almost, she feels like, abandoned her and her siblings. Like he doesn't talk to them. They don't spend holidays together. And so she goes a year or so to visit the house that her mom lived. And there's a big old like Memorial Day party, and her brother Leaf is there.
I do not know how to say. Everyone I know with that name, they pronounce it Leif. Everyone growing up here.
Yeah.
The audiobook kept saying Leaf, and so I don't know. Leaf.
So Leif's there, and he like shows her that their like childhood table that she has it's a crappy old refurbished table, but she has a lot of motion connected to it. People at the party are like writing their names into it and carving like pictures and stuff, and she like has a little bit of a freak out, which it makes sense. But then her and her brother had this nice like little bonding moment through their grieving. I thought it was a nice little scene. Yeah, so she keeps on hiking with her duct tape shoes, and she gets to the next stop, and she asks the post office, hey, are these shoes here? And they're like, no, this is all you have. And she's like, great, I'll wait till later. She goes back, no shoes. She calls REI. REI is like, oh yeah, so we couldn't get there in one day, and we didn't know how to contact you, so they're still at the store. We haven't sent them. And she's like, I've hiked days to get these shoes. And it makes sense. There's no email, there's no texting, right?
Yeah, 1 star REI, come on.
I know. But not by Cheryl. They 5 stars always from Cheryl. And she ends up being able to reschedule it for her next stop, so she has to keep on hiking with her duct tape shoes, which is bonkers.
That has to be. So I mean, I guess her feet already hurt, so what difference? But that has got to be challenging to be hiking with with duct tape shoes. Yeah,
she gets to the next spot, and this is where she finally has her shoes, and it's like a blissful moment of her new shoes that fit. And she keeps on hiking, and then suddenly there's a llama.
Yes.
When the llama showed up, I was like, she hallucinating? And no, it's a real llama or alpaca potentially. And then this old lady named Vera shows up, and she has a like 5-year-old kid named Kyle who has a dog, and they chat for a bit, and Kyle sings her a song, and like it's just a very cute little moment. But the llama cracks me up.
Yeah.
we need more random llamas in our life, you know?
Yes. I literally wrote llama question mark. Like why is there a llama out here? And then it's like, oh, okay, it's because it's someone's llama. That kind of makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. She crosses over the border from California into Oregon, and the sign as she gets into Oregon says Washington this many miles, like, which I just think, you know, she has this big grand moment. I've made it to Oregon. No one cares, not even the signs. Like, you know, like, okay, I'm gonna keep on going. She finally gets to Ashland, which was her original like endpoint, but because of all the bypassing, she's going all the way through Oregon. She gets her last big chunk of money she needs because at every stop she keeps buying Snapple lemonade. Again, a sponsor potentially, Snapple lemonade.
Another, you know, but I
agree with that one.
Hot day that I think that is absolutely valid.
So, Snapple lemonade, yes.
Another sponsor. This book is sponsored by Snapple and REI.
Not too bad. Honestly, I wish I was sponsored by Snapple and REI. She gets the box of stuff, which has clean clothes, non-trail clothes. She stays in a hostel with her friend Stacy. As she's arriving in Oregon is the day that Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead has died. And if anyone who doesn't know Oregon in general, Ashland is a very hippie town in Oregon. Honestly, Ashland, Oregon is the same vibe as Asheville, North Carolina, for those on the East Coast. It's a hippie college town. And so, of course, everyone there is upset that Jerry Garcia has passed because Grateful Dead, that is his people, you know? And because of this, there's a lot of festivities. So she ends up staying a little bit longer, and she ends up meeting this guy named Jonathan. And she goes on this like date with Jonathan, and this is her first like interaction in this kind of like pseudo romantic way with someone since being on the trail, but also since sleeping with Heroin Joe. You know, like that's the only way I could distinguish him right now. Like that's all we really know about him. There's a bluegrass music going on at the venue that Jonathan, this guy's working at, and she's like super anxious and, you know, very worried that she has like hairy legs and like rough patches from where her pack is rubbing her. She's like, I can't let him see me naked, even though I want to, because like whatever, like, you know, she's like very anxious about it. The date ends up going great. He takes her to his like out in the woods organic farm he works at.
He lives on an organic farm. It's like, what? But
very that's very so yep, so Ashland. And then they end up going the next day to the beach and like having a good old romantic time out on the beach,
which is the same beach that her and Paul went to.
Yeah, so she's
an interesting full circle.
Yeah, so she ends up having a overall positive time. And then of course Jonathan's like, what's your address? I'll write you up in Portland, you know. And she's like, I don't know about that guy. You're genuinely really nice, but I don't know if I need that right now.
This was just kind of a, you know, not a one night stand, because it was like a 24-hour date, you know.
And then she begins hiking through Oregon.
This was also when she met Clyde, the OG van.
Yes.
But she's like, I grew this chamomile, and then something about, or he had chewable opium, and I was just like, oh, just no, let's not do that.
Yeah, here. And she just puts it in her mouth, and it's like, wait, I shouldn't do this, and spits it out. Like, at least you had that reaction eventually, you know?
Yeah, but just say no. Just say no to drugs.
Say no to drugs, kids. Say no to drugs. Your grandmas are here to say no to drugs.
But also Clyde, again, just such an Ashland.
Mm-hmm.
That whole is like, okay.
Say no to drugs.
And van lifers that offer you drugs. Okay.
Yeah, say no to those too. Her hiking through Oregon is like, this is not really, like, she zooms through the descriptions pretty much, which makes sense. She's like seasoned at this point. She has the muscles. She like has the goal, right? Then we get to August 18th, which is her mother's birthday. And this is a part where I cried again, is like her dealing with especially all the anger that comes with grief. Even though her and her mom are so close and were her for her whole life, there's a lot that she was upset with, which is fair. People are flawed. As we've learned through this book, people are flawed, but that doesn't mean like that they're not, good people or anything. Her working through the anger she had with her mom's death, I really liked this, the way she described going through that.
I liked all of it. The only thing I don't think I can get down with is the eating the ashes.
Oh yeah, that was weird. I liked it symbolically.
Symbolically, yes. Okay. Yes. And the thing that her mom said, I'm always with you, that whole, like, I'm always with you, that very sweet. Mm-hmm. She did not have to literally be with you in that way.
And also everyone knows how the body works. You're gonna poop out your mom.
Yeah, that one I just my brain had a hard time with. Yeah. I understand. Again, grief makes you do weird things, and totally understandable. But also that one, I was like, "Ooh, I don't think I could do that."
And I was like, when I was listening to this part, it's like, I'm gonna keep her forever. I was like, oh, and then she's gonna suddenly describe this locket she's been wearing the whole time that we didn't know about, that has some of the some of the ash in there. No. Which, like, that would have been cool. You could have done that, right? Like, go to a thrift store, get a random locket.
That would have maybe been a better option.
Yeah, you could glue it shut so none of it comes out,
Yeah, but
just brainstorming.
Just brainstorming some ideas here.
Yeah.
But yes, it is a beautiful chapter for sure, the way that she's working through this, and I think you can really tell that at this point in her hike that she is changing, and she's having some realizations that I think she was hoping to have. And I did really like the way that she could see her mom as kind of two women. Is that she had Bobby as her mom, and then she had Bobby as a woman with her own hopes and dreams and desires. And I think that's that quote that her mom said, that she was never in the driver's seat of her own life.
Yeah.
So heartbreaking. Yeah. And
I really like that part, which makes like the next little chunk less impactful. Like, she keeps on hiking. She meets the quote 3 young bucks, which is these 3 guys and their nickname. They nickname her the Queen of the Trail. Like, this is like the end of it. It's like, okay, we get it. You've lost your shoes. You've gotten past that. You've worked through your grief. We just need to get you to the Bridge of the Gods. During her last few days of hiking, she ends up running into these 2 really creepy hunters who ask her for any water. And so she tries to help them use the pump to get water. They end up breaking it, which rude. But the good thing, REI has a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Use my code, Jenessa. No, just kidding. I wish. Goodness. Anyways, all jokes aside, these 2 creepy hunters, like, she's immediately like, this is not good. This is not good. She parts ways with them only to like start setting up camp right away. Like, she told them that she told them that she was going to keep on hiking, but then they come back and they see that she's not, and one gets like really upset that she lied to him. And he like starts being like very like aggressive, and like being like, you're a pretty girl, I know what you can give me, like really like
just another lesson in men ruining all the fun.
yes, absolutely. But luckily the second of the 2 creepy hunters, the slightly less offensive of the 2 creepy hunters, is like, dude, let's go. She keeps on hiking. She gets to Olali Lake and camps with the 3 young bucks, and her friend Lisa, who she's gonna live with / is the one that's been sending her all the stuff, joins to camp on one of her last few nights there. And then Cheryl keeps on hiking, and she gets to the border to Washington State and sees the Bridge of the Gods, which I have seen plenty of times. It is a nice bridge. 10 out of 10 bridge. I don't know about infrastructure, but just from eyesight,
Aesthetics, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. Well, for Oregon and Washington State bridges, that is, it ain't no Golden Gate Bridge.
Well, no,
yeah, but anyways, so she goes to hike over and she describes this like really like serene moment. I love the ending of this book where she's like, and I sit on this white bench and I eat an ice cream cone, and like that's the end of the hike. And I'm like, yes, end your hikes with ice cream.
Yeah. I have completed many hikes in exchange for milkshakes or ice cream at the end. That is perfectly acceptable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And she does all of this 2 days before her 27th birthday.
Yeah.
And also, as a side note, we now have a count that she has lost 6 toenails.
Oh, yeah. Towards the end, she says, I couldn't yet know, though. I felt it somehow already contained within me. How I'd never see the man in the BMW who drove by her again. But in 4 years, I'd cross the bridge of the gods with another man and marry him in a spot almost visible from where I sat now. How in 9 years that man and I would have a son named Carver, and a year and a half after that a daughter named Bobby. How 15 years I'd bring my family to the same white bench and the four of us would eat ice cream cones while I told them the story of the time I'd been here before when I'd finished walking a long way on something called the Pacific Crest Trail.
It's a very satisfying ending. And yeah. I am glad in a lot of ways that she wrote it so much later on and that we had that versus really close to the moment. I don't think it would have been the same book at all. I mean, obviously she was still dealing with a lot. Like this hike did not cure her of, of the issues she's dealing with. But yeah, I think that is a really great way to end it, knowing that it kind of all worked out in the end after all of this that,
Yeah.
Through.
No, I really liked the ending. And the book in general, I really liked it. Like, I liked it way more than I thought I was going to by the end of it. Because I don't read much wilderness books because of my Alaska upbringing. I'm like, this is my whole life. We get it. But I really enjoyed this one because of, like I said earlier, it's a adventure book written for English majors, right? It's not for the people looking for a hardcore adventure. This is like, here's the meaning behind my adventure, and I liked that a lot.
There's enough about the trail and about the experience that I think it does meet a little bit of the needs of the armchair adventure, if you will. But it is definitely more a philosophical, dive into dealing with grief. And there was, I think, let me find the quote. It was in the prologue. Oh, she's talking about she wants to find a world I thought would both make me into the woman I know I could become and turn me back into the girl I'd once been. And that was kind of talking about her goal with the hike. And so I think that is, there's definitely, powerful meaning behind that. And, I don't know if you have to go out and hike 1,000+ miles to always deal with things. But
I think it's a way.
it is absolutely one way. Again, much better than the heroin and the other stuff. And I do think that is kind of the case. Like, so many of the people that do the PCT or any of the through hikes, I think they're usually looking for something. I mean, you could do it because you want to hike. I think the trail it's just over 2,000 miles, right? It's almost 2,700 miles. So 2,650 miles, I think, is the total of the trail.
That's so far.
That is a very long hike. And it's, I do think that you kind of have to be looking for something or wanting to have a real journey to start on that.
Yeah.
And so it does. It's like, I think it is a metaphor for working through grief. I think it is the way that she tied that. And I know there's been some criticism of the book because she didn't hike the whole thing,
which I think is lame.
Yeah. And I guess the thing is, it's like, yes, if you want a book, if you want an outdoor adventure story that gives you the lowdown on the trail and is more focused on the physical aspects of it and it's like, get a trail guide first.
Yes.
But it's like, that's not this book. And I think that is like, yes, I mean, if she was claiming that, or she was trying to go through, like, do the Triple Crown, and count that, okay, yeah, obviously that would be a problem.
Yeah.
But I think that's a little silly to be like, well, she only hiked over 1,000 miles.
And it's like, okay, do you want the title to be Wild from Lost to Found over 1,000 miles of the Pacific? Like, that's not how advertising works. Like, this book is not about the Pacific Crest Trail, right? It's about a woman working through grief, trying to face her trauma and heal her inner self, like her inner child.
Yeah, using the trail as
exactly.
So I don't know. That is, I've seen that, and I understand. Yes, she didn't do all of it, and I actually thought before reading it, I did think that she hiked the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I just, because you always say, oh, the hiker, on the Pacific Crest Trail, or she hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. So, but I don't really know that it matters for the purpose of the story.
Yeah. The whole time I was reading this, and I also switched back and forth from the book and the audiobook, I really liked the narrator. I think it fit her vibe. It was like an older lady telling her grandkids a story kind of vibe was her voice.
Yeah, for sure.
I liked it. The whole time, whenever I thought about it, I did not picture Reese as Cheryl at all. I love Reese Witherspoon. I love her.
But I cannot picture Elle Woods doing heroin. I'm sorry. I just, yes. So, yes.
So I am excited to watch the movie. Because, like, it also, like, if I remember correctly, and I might be wrong, I'll correct myself next week if I am. But I remember that the movie also was, like, nominated for some Academy Awards. So maybe I missed, and probably, like, best adapted screenplay kind of, I'm assuming that's going to be it. Maybe Reese for actress, I'm not sure. I'll look into it for next episode. But, like, in my memory, my hazy memory of whenever I watched a third of this movie, I remembered that. So if it's true or not.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. It's like, I mean, I love Reese Witherspoon as an actress. And if you look at photos, I mean, I think it is a good casting. I do think, and I might be wrong, maybe Reese is a little older when she played this character. So maybe that's some of it too. But yeah, that is one thing that I kept popping into my mind, that I had a hard time picturing Reese in the book as like, I did not picture her as the character.
I'm also interested. So this book got really popular before the movie because it's an Oprah book club pick, right?
Yes.
You get an Oprah book club pick, you're set for life, essentially. Like, I think this is before Reese had her whole book club system, right?
I believe so.
So I wonder if her acting in Oprah's book club movie, she got the idea. So I'm going to research that, and I'm saying it on the pod this week, so I hold myself accountable to looking it up for next week. And I'm curious that connection there, because, like, Reese's book club is the Oprah book club of today, essentially. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this once I got into it.
And I'd heard about the book for so many years. And I think I honestly probably first heard about the PCT not from this book or from the movie, but because it made the trail so popular. I actually another plug for REI. I actually went to a class because I had a bunch of friends that worked at REI when I was in college. So I went to a class at REI that talked about the PCT, and then I think the other through hikes also, so the AT, the CDT. I think we talked to someone that maybe did a Triple Crown, and so it was it was like a little class. But I do think that I inadvertently heard about this trail because of Wild, because it got so popular.
Yeah, I think I only know of the trail because of the book and the movie, and then my friends my off the grid friends. But also this book is mentioned in Gilmore Girls, that Seasons of Life or whatever, right? When Lorelai is like goes off to try and do her own Eat, Pray, Love of Wild, and then fails miserably, as she would. Because if anyone should not be in the woods, it is Lorelai Gilmore,
for sure.
Yeah, so I might watch that little clip just for to see the reference.
Just to see the reference.
Yeah.
I mean, I did hear about, I guess that is true. I heard about it because I had a friend or a friend of a friend that was training for it. It was all kind of the same time. But I do think a lot of that popularity came from Wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess that was like another thing that was brought up of like, oh, is this book encouraging people to just go start hiking this trail with no experience? I'm like, I did kind of wonder that before, but after reading it, I'm like, no, because she talks about how terrible her experience is. And I don't think
it's a cautionary tale.
I was not encouraged to go try to start hiking this.
Yeah.
Because
it did make me want to go back into nature. Like this over the last year, there's a really nice paved walkway here that goes like 18 miles between this town and the next town over that I walked a lot. But again, it was flat, maybe a hill here or there, Now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go hike for walk. I'm going to go walk for 4 hours like that. I'm like, yeah, this book made me want to go and do that. It did not make me want to go up a mountain, but that's because I have bad knees.
Yeah, I would say that it did maybe make me think I want to do at least another backpacking trip this summer, at least one.
Yeah.
There is something, I don't know, it's just something that in your brain that it is a bit of a sufferfest. You're miserable. I mean, I ended up this summer, I had like a raw spot on my spine from where my pack was kind of not adjusted right. And I was like, wow, why do I want to keep doing this? But it does. Like, you're like, this kind of sucks and it's hard, but it's so beautiful and it's such a great experience. And then you're sleeping in the wilderness and you wake up and have your breakfast and it's beautiful. And I don't know, like, yeah, why do you want to do that?
See, like, whenever I think about that, I'm like, I could do that on my dad's boat that he sold that I can't be on anymore. But like in my head, I'm like, I could do that on the boat. Let's go boat camping and then hike for 4 hours and then go back to the boat. That's more my vibe.
That is definitely fair. And I've done a lot of car camping now, and I do like the convenience of it. And I like that you can bring however much weight it doesn't.
You can bring your 4 books and not burn them. You can
bring your 4 books and your camera and your
pack and your condoms.
Giant roll of condoms. Yes, you can bring all these things and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is something kind of amazing about carrying everything that you need to survive and be comfortable on your back.
Yes.
Like that was I am glad, even though I have not done a ton of backpacking at this point, as of the release of this particular podcast, we will see. But that part I did find kind of incredible. And you just pack everything up and you keep going, and it's very empowering.
It is. Like I was thinking about this yesterday because I was listening to the end of this. I was running some errands. I had to go into TJ Maxx to get a thing, and I went in there and I was like, "Ooh, look at all these little things I could buy." And I was like listening, I'm like, she has all her stuff on her back, Jenessa. You do not need this adorable little rabbit candle, though it's very cute. I did not get the rabbit candle. I thought about it, but I didn't. But I'm also a thing that likes things, like a person that likes things. Like I have so many books, let alone like other, like I like little things. And so I'm like, this, I could never sell all my stuff. But it was like reading this book, it did give me that like unhinged thought of like, I could do this. I could sell everything I own and go live on the streets.
You're like, yeah,
no, I could not. Like, I mean, if I had to, like, but like, I'm not going to choose to do that,
It would be hard to be a minimalist or to live out of a backpack with your book collection, for sure.
It would. I own over 25 copies of Pride and Prejudice. Those are not going in my pack.
I was going to say, you would need a separate pack just for that.
Just for Pride and Prejudice.
Just for Pride and Prejudice. Yeah.
Anyways, before we go, I do want to make you talk about Out to Sea to all my non-Alaskan listeners, which is, my friends in Virginia.
All right. What do you want to know?
so what is Out to Sea? Delaney's like speaking of adventure of reading this book. I think it's cool what you do.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yes. So Out to Sea Expedition Company is a small outdoor adventure company based here in Ketchikan, Alaska. I started it with my husband and our dog, R.I.P.
Oh, Paris.
So we take folks out. We have a fully inflatable Zodiac. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, it is a fully inflatable boat. You often see them on cruises, so like cruises down to Antarctica, that kind of thing. We're not doing anything quite that epic, but we go out here in Ketchikan. We go out and look at wildlife, birds, so birders.
Yeah, all my bird fans. I have a lot of birder fans, so
perfect. Yeah. Yes, so we go out and look at birds. Not always something that people appreciate. So when we do get birders, we are very happy because we love to see the birds. But yeah, basically we're going out and we are trying to show people the little magical things that make this place so incredible and so beautiful. So yeah, and that's, we usually do 2.5-hour trips.
They're really fun. So I am making Delaney talk about this because she is my friend and I wanted to brag about it. But like, if you're ever on a cruise in Ketchikan or just happen to be in Ketchikan, which doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does.
If you're in the neighborhood,
it's look into it. It's a really fun time. I also just love being on the water. I miss the ocean.
And I think that's the thing that I love about it the most. And maybe coming, especially because we did do tours where you're taking big groups of people. And I was on the boats a little bit, but I think the fact that you can be so close to the water and, you can see all of the cool sea creatures and, you can smell the seals sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, I think that's a positive. I think that's cool.
I think it's an experience, right?
Yeah.
It's better than your toenails falling off, Cheryl Strayed.
100%. Yeah, it is. It is definitely. It's a cool experience, and I mean, yes, you do sometimes get a little wet because it does rain here in this beautiful rainforest. But I think that is kind of a neat thing that to experience a place without the barriers of,
Yeah. So if you want to have your own wild adventure, but like also not have to do all the horrific stuff that you have to do with through hiking, go check out to Sea Expedition. I am making you plug your business. That's because you should.
A wild experience without the pain.
Yes. And cute little animals.
And yes. And we like to talk about, living here and our experience in Alaska. So I think it's always cool when you can hang out with locals and kind of get that local perspective. So yes. So at Out to Sea Expeditions on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, what have you.
Yes.
And yes.
Yay. Go check them out, friends.
Come see the place that raised Jenessa.
Yes.
We do talk about your slug race championship.
Oh yes, it's
regularly.
Yeah, as you should. I'm the champion.
But yes, just so you know, you get talked about. You're appointed.
I welcome it. My slug fame, my kingdom. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Next week, we're watching the movie Wild, starring Reese Witherspoon. Will it be good? We will find out. Make sure you follow us on all the things on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Give us 5 stars and leave us a review. If it's not 5 stars, don't worry about it. Follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast and stay up to date with all the things. Thanks for listening. And remember, read the book first.